disagree with the CBO analysis that came out right before the passage that says that this will reduce the national deficit?
I don't know. What I do know is that the CBO isn't saying that they won't raise taxes by $1 trillion. So, you know, any analysis can be shown to balance if you assume enough additional revenue. And that's my concern. I mean, deficit neutral or not, everyone is saying it's going to raise, you know, the amount of money that comes into the system by $1 trillion. So you could say, well, you know, we're going to save $500 million, and that would be great. But if you've raised the taxes by $2 trillion, then that $500 million is not that important. I'm sorry, 500 billion. If you were say, let's say that instead of 100 and some billion, which is what I think CBO said, they say it was 500 billion. Well, that's wonderful. But if you did it by additional burdens on individuals and corporations, then look, balancing is only one part of it. It's spending priorities that's really important. What are you spending the money on, and how much money are you bringing in? And you look at the debt deficit chart and you start pulling Social Security out, and it is really bad. I mean, it's unprecedented. We don't have any historical comparison in our country. We do in other countries, and it hasn't usually ended well. So I'm not opposed to people finding the way they want. That's my point. I don't know what the best way is for everybody. I don't think there is a best way for everybody. I just think the playing field ought to be as level as possible, and we ought to look at the motivation and say, you know, what can we do to motivate people in a way that will improve access, that will strengthen affordability, because those are important values.
Do you have friends who are gay, and if so, have you broached the conversation about your stance on traditional marriage and their stance on traditional marriage, or don't you discuss it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, we agree to disagree, or in some cases, you know, they agree with me. But you know, my stance on traditional marriage is focused on both the traditional evidence and also the sociological evidence that children in two-parent heterosexual families have statistically the best opportunity, you know, for economic and that's true for single parents as well. I mean, you know, I would love to see every child have a mom and a dad who loves and cares for them. That's the ideal. But I'm opposed to redefining a term for political purposes.
In terms of immigration, you're opposed to amnesty. I'm just wondering how you resolve that with also being fiscally conservative. We know that there are X million of illegal immigrants in the country. Do we just pretend that they're not there? Do we pay money to send them back? Do we build a higher fence? And if so, how much money are we willing to put into that at the expense of other things?
The immigration issue is one that is pretty straightforward to me because it is a government priority. You know, one of the things that conservatives sometimes get painted with is that you don't think there should be any government. You don't like government. No, actually, I think there are some really clearly defined roles for government to play, and border security is certainly one of them. Making sure that people's persons and property are secure is what governments are instituted for, specifically ours. And so I think that we need to have a system that assures us that our borders are secure, that people who are here have permission. And I don't think that's, you know, given what we spend on lots of other things, I don't think that's unachievable using a combination of technological advances and border fences to put the resources into that. Because I don't think we have I don't think we can be serious about other national security issues if we don't know who's here. And that's a very simple thing to say. It's very hard to do. But the less government is involved in fixing problems it can't fix, the more resources can be put to doing that. As far as the moral side of it, I think it's an immoral thing to ignore that they're here, because what happens in practical application is they don't have rights, because those who would seek to take advantage of them can do so without much fear, because you know the illegal risks for worse consequences speaking up for their rights than they do, you know, if they don't. So I think it's immoral on both sides. And we tried amnesty, and it made some temporary changes, but it ultimately didn't solve the problem. That's my pragmatic side. I'd be for it. After all, my guy, Ronald Reagan, was the guy who signed off on it. But the evidence now is that it doesn't ultimately change those driving motivations. I mean, look, if I lived somewhere else, I would do anything to come here, because this is the greatest country in the world. So I understand the drive and the motivation.
Well, there's a certain part of the electorate who's going to be attracted to the idea of no amnesty, but when you tell them that I'd like to spend $100 million to send individuals back, you either round them up and send them back, or amnesty. Is there another option that I'm not?
Sure. They're, again, incentive-based. You create an opportunity for them to leave, and you make it widely known that here's going to be the economic consequences. You will be deported and you will be banned. So if you want to come, and then you combine it with a more rational immigration policy that recognizes the need.
Are you suggesting we pay people to leave?
No.
What's the economic benefit?
Oh, the economic incentive is that if they are caught after a certain period of time, if they're found to be here illegally, they will be forever barred from coming back. So incentives can cost money, or they can just be a cost to the individual. In that case, I think that's a pretty simple incentive.
We send people back now when they're caught.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, there's lots of holes in that system, but yes, there is some deportation does occur.
Just because we say they're banned from coming back doesn't mean they won't try.
That's true.
They came once.
That's true. Yeah, look, I'm not a utopianist. I don't believe that as long as we're a great place to be, and other places in the world like our neighbor to the south are not such a great place to be, people will try to come.